Ripple National Trust Bank. What does this mean for XRP? And what does this mean for Swift Ripple connection? We're going to break it down and talk about how the APIs connect and how this new banking system for Ripple will open the doors for mass liquidity and mass adoption. Don't go anywhere. We're going to do a deep dive, and this slide right here is going to break it down for you. So don't go anywhere. Okay, before we dive into the filing from the OCC, let's go ahead and talk about Ripple XRP ETF because that's important. I know the government has been shut down and there's been a lot of questions. Is this going to happen or not? Just keep in mind the government can open at any time. So don't think that this isn't going to go anywhere. It just may be delayed again, but let's look at the dates that are on the books as of right now that we can follow. So right now we have the SEC is expected to rule on Grayscale XRP ETF October 18th, the 21 shares Core XRP Trust ETF on October 19th, Bitwise XRP ETF October 22nd, Canary Capital XRP ETF October 23rd, and then Wisdom Tree XRP ETF October 24th, and finally the CoinShares XRP ETF October 23rd as well. So we have a lot of momentum building around XRP and their ETFs. But that's important because we're waiting for Ripple to get that National Trust Bank license that hasn't been officially fully approved yet, but we can access the document. So let's take a look at that. So right here, this is where you'll see this is the actual filing. It is 27 pages long. We're not going to read through it on this video, but I always leave my research down in the description so you can always read through it yourself and validate what I'm saying. But essentially, Ripple is trying to become a Ripple National Trust Bank. But what does that mean for Ripple? What does that mean for XRP? And what does that mean for the XRP ledger? Well, I'm about to walk you through a bit of a slideshow so you can see what the impact that this is going to have and why they need this trust bank to become fully adopted. There is a much bigger macro view of Ripple, what they're trying to provide, and they really are becoming the main bank for major institutions. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to be a one-stop shop for these institutions that they can trust and understand they are fully regulated. So let's go ahead and dive in and look at this presentation. So on your screen here, you'll be seeing that this is how the flow is going to go. We're going to talk about Ripple, RippleNet, Ripple National Trust Bank, the Hidden Road acquisition, and what that means for Ripple, the Federal Reserve master account that Ripple filed for that we haven't heard from yet, and how that impacts XRPL and XRP, and what's the difference between each of these and why do they need each one of these. So let's dive into this. So on your screen here, you're seeing that at the top you have Ripple. So you know Ripple is the main company that is going then to oversee all these below, okay? So what is RippleNet? RippleNet, and why it's important, it provides the APIs messaging standards like ISO 20022, compliance screen like AML, which is anti-money laundering, and then KYC, which is know your customer, and liquidity orchestration. Back up to APIs. So the API is the thing you really want to pay attention to. So Ripple having APIs globally, that is going to allow them to tap into anything that is running the ISO 20022. This is where Ripple and Swift they roll together, they coincide together, the best way to say it. And what an API is, the best way to think about this, it's application programming interface. And think of it as the phone lines or the power lines that the ISO messaging system is going to run through. So by having access to Ripple's API network, the clients on RippleNet can access Swift's API. So a lot of these clients that Ripple will be acquiring already have a Swift BIC number. So Ripple is smart. They're actually just going to be tapping into Swift's current client base, and they're going to be running side by side. So that's how you're going to have Ripple, XRPL, and XRP running with Swift. They're going to run side by side each other on different APIs, but Ripple will tie into Swift's API via their customer. They're using a backdoor essentially to swing into Swift's network and access those clients. That is genius. That's the true magic here. Also, it connects participation institution and routes transactions, sits above XRP ledger, and can use multiple settlement options, XRPL, RLSD, stablecoin, etc. The network brain that coordinates payments, messaging, and liquidity. So that's what RippleNet is. It's essentially the parent that's going to be running everything under that. Now let's talk about what Ripple National Trust Bank and what that's going to do for them once they get this approval. So once they get this approval, they're going to have fiduciary powers and trust management, integrating payments and custody and trust in one regulated entity, access to Federal Reserve master account, better regulatory oversight and credibility. So essentially what they're trying to do, and what's different with Ripple National Trust Bank versus Hidden Road versus Swift, they are giving every solution to every customer's need out there that's a major financial institution. They have thought of every pain point and they have solved that. And you're slowly seeing them roll this out to show you that bigger picture of how that works. So understand that each one of these have a different function that each customer will need. So they have provided different options. That is huge. And this is why Ripple is that sleeping giant. That is why XRP is going to be the powerhouse token that people are saying that it's a dead coin. They just don't truly understand what's happening behind XRP and the XRP ledger. Okay. So now let's talk about the Hidden Road acquisition. If they have a Ripple National Trust Bank, why do they acquire the Hidden Road? Well, Hidden Road has a lot of clients, $3 trillion annually. They just tapped into a major server is all they did to power their RippleNet. That's genius, really. There's vertical integration of institutional stack, use of RLUSD as collateral cross margining, cost efficiency gains via XRP post trade integration, expanding into traditional hybrid asset classes. So this is their merger between the old system and the new system. It's a doorway for them to get in, is essentially what's happening here. So now let's look at the Federal Reserve Master Account. So the Federal Reserve Master Account, it's reserves to the Fed and settle directly on Fed payment rails, bypassing intermediaries. So now they're tapping directly into the Fed system. Now, will they use Fed wire? We don't know yet, but they do have access to the Federal Reserve now, which is huge, which means our governments can start tapping in, just very much like we see U.S. Treasuries running with Ondo, right? Then it says faster, cheaper fiat leg settlement, fewer intermediaries, cleaner reserve management for stablecoin backing and client flows. And then we have the XRP ledger. So let's look at the XRP ledger. This is going to provide the XRPL's role in the Ripple financial stack, the ledger for RLUSD. Yes, it does run on Ethereum right now, but keep in mind, Ripple is not fully up and running yet. They just have their RLUSD stablecoin being out on the market and getting some exposure, essentially, right? The bridge between traditional finance and tokenized money, the liquidity and tokenization layer for Hidden Road. That's very important. Again, 3 trillion assets under management with them. Then XRPL as the transparency and compliance layer. So that's huge too, because transparency and compliance is what blockchain crypto is all about. And then now let's finally address the XRP token itself. It's a native asset that powers the XRPL. So to utilize the XRP ledger, you're going to need a gas fee, a token to access that. That's where XRP comes into. And as we spoke about, the XRP ledger is going to be tied into these major financial institutions, and the roundabout way will be tapped into Swift. So understand how that all flows together, but also why that's important is RippleNet's liquidity engine, on-demand liquidity 2.0 is what that offers with the XRP token, universal liquidity for token for RLUSD and tokenized assets, custody and institutional access, standard custody, and Ripple National Trust Bank. So hopefully you see the bigger picture here with Ripple. It is a much bigger giant than they are letting on. They are slowly acquiring and expanding, and they are slowly dominating the market. Right now, they cover 90% of the global remittances, FX network. So they're tapped into 90% of the world's economy. That's huge. So Ripple isn't going anywhere. The XRP token is going to be massive, and the XRP ledger is going to be that back end trusted source for major institutions. So hopefully you understand this breakdown and how this is going to all play a part and how they all work together. So if you enjoyed this video, you enjoyed this kind of content, consider liking the video, commenting, and subscribing. It's huge. I would very much appreciate it. That's all I have for you on this episode. As always, though, take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, and become that change you want to see in the world. I'll see you on the next one.